I'm Elex Michaelson. This week, the issue is the Trump inauguration. We take you inside the Capitol as we sit down with members of Congress from both parties to discuss what President Trump 47 means for California. Then we discuss the state's response to the wildfires with Attorney General Rob Bonta and Senate President Pro Tem Mike McGuire.
Broadcasting across California, you're watching The Issue Is.
Welcome to The Issue Is. I'm Elex Michaelson, reporting this week from Washington, where it is literally freezing and there's snow flurries in the air. We've come here to document a historic transfer of power and talk about what it means for California.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations, Mr. President.
It's so cold this year that Donald Trump will not be taking the oath of office outside like he did in 2017, but instead taking it inside.
I, Ronald Reagan, do solemnly swear.
Like Ronald Reagan did in 1985, the last time an inauguration moved indoors due to frigid temps. Those who came to see the inauguration in person outside, a little bummed.
Well, we're a little bummed out that it's been relocated inside, but we're optimistic that President Trump's second term will be just as successful as Ronald Reagan's second term.
If he had it outside, we'd be outside. He wants to do it inside, we'll go in. It's going to happen. So that's what we're excited about.
Despite the cold, inauguration week is busy inside Capitol Hill.
The Senate and House actually has its own underground subway system, which we're taking on a ride right now.
This is the freshman class.
We visit the office of Republican Congressman Kevin Kiley of Rockland. He often makes national news for his consistent critiques of California Governor Gavin Newsom.
What does the Trump administration mean for California?
Well, it means I think we have a lot of opportunities to really get at the root of some of the problems that have held California back for quite a while now. And so I think that, most immediately, we're going to have an opportunity to unleash tremendous economic growth and to get inflation under control. We're going to have an opportunity to bring immediate security to the border, including the border in California. And I think you're going to see a lot of improvements when it comes to public safety as well, and when it comes to things like water policy and fire policy, which of course have become, come under a spotlight here. And in particular, Californians, because I'm working with a handful of other folks to make sure that we get our SALT deduction back, or at least that it's significantly expanded from what it is right now, because in 2017 they capped your state and local tax deduction at $10,000. So you used to be able to exempt or to deduct all of the taxes you paid to the state and to your local government on your federal tax return, but now you can only deduct $10,000 of that, and that really hit Californians as hard as just about anyone in the country. So
huge increase for a lot of people.
Huge tax increase, exactly. Yeah. So we're looking to significantly raise that cap, and that's going to bring huge tax relief to a lot of folks in California.
And you all just met with President-elect Trump
right.
in Mar-a-Lago to talk about that. What was his reaction?
I think he's on our side. He was very committed to saying that we need to work to find a solution here. So I think that...
why did he do it the first time?
Well, I think that, he probably has come to realize how big the impact is for folks.
Big news of this week, we just had the Supreme Court ruling when it comes to TikTok. The Supreme Court saying that this ban can go into effect. What do you make of the Supreme Court's ruling? Do they get it right?
Well, they're deferring to Congress and recognizing that we made the policy judgment that we can't have the Chinese Communist Party being able to get access to hundreds of millions of Americans' personal information, potentially abuse that data and feed propaganda, serving the interests of the CCP directly to Americans.
But right now it is, and this deadline's coming up. It seems like Biden's kicking the can down the road, giving Trump the option. What do you think President Trump should do?
Well, I think he's looking at a way that he can reach some sort of deal so that we can have a change in ownership, or we can at least have safeguards or protections in place to protect Americans.
Gavin Newsom and the Democrats have talked about Trump-proofing California. You've talked about Newsom-proofing Washington. What do you mean by that?
Well, Newsom-proofing California, because there's a lot of ways in which actually federal policy has in some ways enabled Gavin Newsom. So in the same vein, we can sort of stop enabling him. So I'll give you some pretty clear examples of that. The California high-speed rail is an absolute disaster, and the federal government should stop sending money to it. Or all of these EV mandates. Those all come with the stamp of approval from the federal government. So we're seeking to withdraw those things. Or I'm introducing legislation related to the Newsom program providing $3 billion in free Medi-Cal benefits to undocumented immigrants. I'm introducing legislation to say that you can't do that.
Do you ever talk to the governor?
No, I mean, I've actually reached out to him a number of times in the days of COVID, for example. I'd say we should actually discuss this, and that request would not be accepted. And then he put out some statement, blasting me or claiming I'm, trying to stop Californians from, getting the help they need. So I actually was there for 2 years under Jerry Brown, who I'm not a huge fan of by any stretch of the imagination, but he was a lot better at working with the legislature than Newsom was.
These are the bills that I was able to work on.
We also meet up with Republican Young Kim of Anaheim Hills.
Very, very proud to be able to showcase.
She showed us her many pieces of bipartisan legislation she worked on, signed by President Biden. Kim is rated as one of the most bipartisan members in the entire Congress, helping her win re-election as a Republican.
As you know, after November election, Alex, I'm the only Republican in the greater Los Angeles and Orange County area.
How's that feel?
It's a challenge, a lot of weight on my shoulder, but I need to represent my community and the concerns and the pressing issues and the crisis that we are facing.
What do you think is the lesson that other Republicans can learn from you? The fact that you are the last surviving LA representative who is a Republican.
When we talk about bipartisanship, it's not a bad word. Depending on who you talk to, I'm criticized for being bipartisan. I'm hailed as a hero by being bipartisan. But I think, at the end of the day, look, we have the majority in the House, we have the majority in the Senate, and then we have the White House under the Republican administration. Mm-hmm. But we have the very, very slim majority in the House. And I've known this when I came here 4 years ago. Mm-hmm. The only way to get big things done is to reach across the aisle and work in a bipartisan way. That was my promise I made when I was first elected, and I kept my promise, and I have delivered results because I worked across the aisle in a bipartisan way.
What are your big priorities now for this next term, now that you have Republican control here, Republican Senate, Republican President? What are you looking to get done?
I want to make sure that the policies that we work on is in line with keeping the American dream and protecting the American dream. That includes maybe doing some comprehensive immigration reform, making sure that DACA is fixed one way or another. As someone who came to America to realize the American dream and seek the opportunities this country provided for someone like me, I want to make sure that that is intact. We welcome those who want to come here and realize the same opportunities like I did, but let's do it legally. And fixing the immigration that is broken for generations, for decades, it needs to be done, however, in a fair, compassionate, and in a common sense way. So I'm willing to work with the Trump administration who expressed the desire to come up with some kind of a DACA fix. I'm willing to work with my colleagues on both sides of the aisle. And I am really honored to be in a position to add my voice in unique perspective as an immigrant who came here legally. No one should cut through the line. No one should expect that they can come here illegally, cross the border, hide out because of our failed immigration policies that is not being implemented. So I want to get some fix and allow the opportunities for the future generations to realize the same American dream that I'm privileged and honored to live.
You're pushing for no conditions when it comes to fire aid. Seems like other Republicans are joining you on that. Where are we at in terms of that, and why is that so important for you?
When natural disaster hits your communities, it is not partisan. It's not a blue or red issue. We are talking about life and death. We're talking about communities that are hurting. Yeah. So there shouldn't be any condition other than making sure that we bring the resources and the aid as soon as possible to our communities.
Up next, a Democratic perspective from Congressman Khanna. He makes news with us, offering a surprising suggestion for the next LA mayor.
That's for when I was an intern for Bill Clinton in 1995.
We're inside the Washington office of Democratic Congressman Khanna.
I've passed 7 bills in Congress.
He represents Silicon Valley and has been discussed as a potential presidential candidate. We begin talking about federal aid for fire victims in California.
Well, the first thing we got to do is get the aid. The aid needs to be unconditional. He's president of the United States of America. There are voters who voted for him in Los Angeles, in the Palisades, and we've got to get this aid to folks.
Are you confident that you're going to get it?
I'm not, unfortunately, because they're already talking, Republicans, about, or do we need conditions? There's one thing that used to still is sacred in Congress, is when you have a natural disaster, we respond as Americans. And I hope we can keep that going and we don't politicize aid.
We just found out that TikTok ban has been upheld by the Supreme Court. You represent Silicon Valley. Your reaction to the Supreme Court decision?
Terrible decision. It's going to take away the speech from 170 million Americans. I have been opposed to this ban from day one. I've had a petition going, actually, it's gone viral, 700,000 signatures in 24 hours to keep the lights on. It's going to cross 1 million. I've spoken to the White House. I am hopeful that the president's going to put a pause on the ban.
You know, a lot of your colleagues in this building here say that TikTok is a national security threat, that it's basically Chinese spyware, and that we need to get it off of our phones. What do you say to that?
You know what they do? They say that on television, and then they go to their campaigns and they say, how can I get more TikTok followers? I say, hypocrisy. Give me a break. Of course, there are legitimate issues. Let's make sure the state government doesn't intervene in the algorithms. Let's make sure our data is protected. But you don't need to ban the app to do that.
Why do you think Trump won? And what do you think Democrats can learn from that?
2 things. We need a better economic message. I mean, he convinced more people who were struggling that he would help them economically than we did. We ran on joy, but it's rough out there. A lot of people aren't feeling joy. They feel that rents are too high. They feel that their jobs aren't paying as well. They feel that deindustrialization is still taking away their factories and offshore them. So we need a more compelling economic message of how we're going to build the working and middle class and to empathize with people's struggles. The second thing is we got to stop looking down on people just if they have a different religious or cultural view.
Are you running for president in 2028?
I'm focused on 2026 and making Hakeem Speaker of the House. Look, I'm flattered that I'm on these lists, but all of us need to focus on taking back the Congress as a first step.
You know, when most people hear that, that sounds like a yes.
It sounds like a focus on Congress. Here's what I will say, who should be running for LA mayor is Bob Iger. He's someone I know very well. He's the leader of Disney. He's a remarkable person. He had thought about running for president. That's why I thought of it. And we need a new leadership in the state of California and in these cities. Bob Iger would be phenomenal. It's going to be a huge rebuild in Los Angeles, and I'm hopeful that he will do it. I don't know if he will, but I'm hopeful he will.
Karen Bass is the mayor. She is running for re-election as the mayor.
Is she? So, I supported her the first time. Look,
So would you rather see Bob Iger? Is that what you're saying?
I would rather see Bob Iger right now. It's a moment of crisis. I think Iger has the business leadership, the ability to do something new, to help redevelop. We got to get that city, as you know, ready for the Olympics in 2028. Now, I don't know if he'll do it. I mean,
have you talked to him about that?
I have. I've said he should. I said he should. You know, and he wanted to run for president for a number of reasons. I think he didn't. But I want new leadership across the state in California, but we certainly need dynamic leadership in Los Angeles.
So you would support Iger over Rick Caruso?
I would support Iger over, unless you're running. I don't know. I'd support Iger over almost anyone in Los Angeles.
When we come back, a focus on California's response to the wildfires with the leader of the state Senate and the Attorney General. This week, California Attorney General Bonta announced a crackdown on people taking advantage of California fire victims. Because Governor Gavin Newsom declared a state of emergency, landlords can legally raise prices no more than 10%. New York Post says some are jacking up prices 124%. We spoke with the AG before I headed out for D.C.
Mr. Attorney General, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me, Alex.
What are you seeing in terms of price gouging right now?
We're seeing folks who are trying to take advantage of the situation, exploit the vulnerability, prey on these individuals who've been displaced, who are looking for a home, who are desperate. There's a surge in demand because of the natural disaster, and they're taking advantage of that and violating the law in the process.
So how quickly are we going to be seeing potential criminal charges in this?
You could see something in days, at the earliest, weeks at the most, but we want the message to be clear. These are victims. These are people who are reeling and in pain. These are our fellow Californians. They deserve that we lift them up, not take advantage of them. Do not price gouge. Just because you can doesn't mean that you should, and it is illegal. You will be held accountable, and you will be punished if you do.
How does somebody know that they're a victim? And if they are a victim, how do they reach out to you?
I'll tell you how. You go to oag.ca.gov/report and send us the message about your experience. Send us documents that indicate the price that you were told is the cost of the housing. If you are able, send us the price before the declaration of emergency on January 7th, so we can do a side-by-side, and it can be clear that the increase is over 10%. But you don't have to do all of that. That's just helpful if you can. People know they're victims when they see these prices that are sky high and way out of whack.
And as we wrap things up, the bottom line message to the people of California tonight.
California is certainly during this time knocked down because of these horrific, unprecedented LA fires, but we're not knocked out, and we're going to rebuild. We're going to recover, and we're going to heal, and we will do that best if we do it together.
The Attorney General of the state of California, Rob Bonta, thanks for coming on and sharing your views.
Thank you for having me.
Also spoke with Mike McGuire, the leader of California's Senate. He's in favor of Governor Newsom's plan for the state to designate at least $2.5 billion for wildfire victims and leading a special session of the legislature to pass it.
Senate President Pro Tem McGuire, thanks so much for being on.
Good evening, Alex. Thank you so much for having me.
So what exactly will that money do?
Yeah, absolutely. First and foremost, I want to let you know that we're moving with speed. We should be approving this $2.5 billion here within the next 2 weeks. And I want to be very clear. LA, we've got your back. We are moving with speed to be able to get this approved. Here's what's going to happen. Number one, it's going to kickstart the debris removal and the community rebuilding process. The vast majority of the funds will be going to kick off the two-phase debris removal cleanup. The first phase, household toxic debris, kitchen cleaners, bathroom cleaners, car batteries, bullets, oil, gas in homes, getting that out. Then it's going to kickstart the second phase, which is the debris removal, foundations, walls of homes, remaining pieces of concrete, cars. What's critically important is that the money is there to start paying the bills, to move the contractors in, and the vast majority of the $2.5 billion will kickstart and expedite the community cleanup. The last thing I'll just say on this, I have been through a dozen fires, lost, and I don't mean to get emotional about it, but I've seen in my district that I represent in Northern California the loss of thousands upon thousands of homes. And here's what I know. Any successful community rebuild has a foundation of a successful community cleanup. That's why we need to put this money into this account to get it moving quickly. And I promise you, Alex, this money will help expedite the rebuild process.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about that. We have some images of you dealing with fires in your district. You've dealt with at least 3 catastrophic fires in your own particular district. What did you learn from that experience, and how can that be applied to what's happening now in Southern California?
First and foremost, I think it's important to note this is incredibly overwhelming. Alex, you've seen this day after day that you've been working this. The pain, the grief, the anger, it is real. And this is devastating. And this cleanup and rebuild is going to take time. I just want to be very candid about it. There are several steps that we can take right now to ensure that we are able to move with speed. Number one, we have to expedite permitting of homes, businesses, places of worship, and schools. So in the city of Santa Rosa, in which I work in, every home that was lost, that rebuilt within their square footage, got a ministerial permit, over-the-counter permit, didn't go to a hearing at City Council or Board of Supervisors, over-the-counter permit. It saved years upon years of getting these homes built. Number two, we have to focus on schools. If folks can send their families can send their kids back to school, it brings normalcy back to one's life. Number three, 15% of all bids that came in to homeowners who were rebuilding from the Tubbs fire in Santa Rosa, 15%, they were fraudulent. So we need to swarm the greater LA fire zone with law enforcement officials from the Contractor State Licensing Board to be able to enforce these fraudulent bids and go after these contractors. The last piece I'll just say is we have to make sure that we are communicating and working directly with local governments and FEMA and the State Office of Emergency Services. FEMA will be working with the county, the city, along with the State Office of Emergency Services on this cleanup. We can't miss a beat. We have to be attached at the hip. And I'm just going to be blunt. These political attacks, this partisan bickering, it's not going to get us anywhere. It's going to set us back. And what the number one priority has to be, I don't care if you're a Republican or a Democrat, has to be getting these communities rebuilt. I think the best days for LA and the state are still ahead. And I'm firm in my belief we can get this done. But we have to focus on taking care of neighbors in need first.
Well, the first, hopefully, of many interviews. Senator McGuire, thank you so much for sharing really helpful information there. It's going to be a long road ahead, and we're grateful to have your support.
We're going to get it done. Thank you so much for having me.
Up next, how you can help wildfire victims. Plus, we wrap things up from Washington. Stay with us. Welcome back to Washington. 4 years ago, we were reporting from here as Joe Biden was inaugurated. It was at the height of COVID and just weeks after the insurrection. Most people were not even allowed on the mall, and security was intense. This year, it's a different scene. Although there is still plenty of security that is in place, there's a lot of people that are coming to the mall, and we will be here for complete coverage next week on The Issue Is. But as we leave you, we want to take you back home to California with the incredible images of generosity, of people reaching out to help the victims of the California wildfires. We encourage you to do the same, support the American Red Cross or whatever nonprofit that's reputable that you believe in. But in any event, our state needs help, and we appreciate all of you for stepping up.